This is a different type of analysis, but it is, of course, political theater. What do you make of this choice and of what we just witnessed?
Well, I can tell you, I've already been online, looked up the model that she bought. Not a terribly fiscally conservative price there. If you want heels like that, I think they're going to set you back about $230 Canadian. The other thing, if you've watched Chrystia Freeland's various photo ops through the budgets she has done, I believe this is the fourth time we've seen a shoe purchase from her, either at a Canadian retailer, or you might remember during the pandemic, she had some shipped and she did kind of an unboxing in her backyard, but because that was a COVID budget. She knows what she likes, because black pumps with a skinny heel like that, sometimes higher than others, depending on the year. But she has bought very similar shoes every time. So we know what she likes. We also know what she really likes, which are the runners that you saw her take off before she put the heels on. I think we'll see the heels to deliver the budget. But to be honest, most of the time when she's strolling around her riding and on the hill and in airports and stuff, she does like the running shoes. So there's your fashion, your fashion report. But listen, I will say, hard to miss the messages here. You mentioned female entrepreneurs. This company's only been around since 2017. Also interesting, you heard them talking about the tariff treatment, manufacturing in Portugal, shipping into Canada. I think a little nod there to CETA, Canada's free trade agreement with the European Union, which made for those tariff-free shipments of footwear back and forth between those two jurisdictions. They've now expanded, and I understand provide shoes to a lot of U.S. retailers like Target and Kohl's. So a success story on the entrepreneurial front. Freeland will be hoping that her budget tomorrow also deemed a success story, because as she wears those heels, she does have a lot to balance in this equation. We've been talking all morning about a comment that she made last Thursday about how the deficit would not be going up in this budget. And that left a lot of people scratching their heads a bit, because we have heard nothing but, frankly, spending announcements for the last couple of weeks. They have given us a lot of this budget in advance, told us about a lot of things the government's going to do on the housing front, also told us about plans in defense, plans for a school food program, plans for sort of some money to get more sort of Canadian-led research in artificial intelligence as well. All those things add up to $38 billion. Now, some of it is loans and financing, but the part that is like spending still, $21 billion. How do you do that without making the deficit go up? Well, you have to do one of two things, or some combination of both. Either you have to be cutting other kinds of spending, and we know that Treasury Board President Anita Anand did lead a $15 billion expenditure review this past fall, but that's kind of already been done, so I don't know sort of how that will help them going forward. That has kind of been helping them to sort of stay inside where they wanted to be in terms of their targets for the deficit. Beyond that, will we see more program spending cuts? We'll listen for that tomorrow. But their other option is to raise more revenue in an economy that is not growing terribly quickly. Does that mean we're going to see new kinds of tax revenue being required? We know the digital services tax they've promised but not implemented. The parliamentary budget officer says that could help them to the tune of over $7 billion over 5 years. The Americans pushed back, did not want to see that implemented, but it seems like some of the resistance in Washington to that is backing off a bit, so perhaps that goes forward. We know the New Democrats also wanted some kind of a windfall tax on excessive profits from big grocery chains, perhaps telecom companies that are believed to be sort of gouging people with their cell phone bills and things. Of course, the problem with doing something like that, how do you prevent those corporations from turning around and just jacking up their prices even more to take into account the higher taxes that the federal government is going to be charging them? So unclear sort of how you do all that. And of course, when it comes to wanting to tax wealthier individuals or wealthier corporations instead of sort of the middle-class voters you need to vote for you in 2025. Another issue is that wealthier, more prosperous corporations, of course, always have options in terms of how they treat their income, how they organize, how they sort of report their assets and so on, including moving things to other tax jurisdictions, which, of course, doesn't end up helping the government at all after they do that. So very difficult to design something to make revenue without sort of creating problems in other areas.
So she will have a lot of balancing and a fine line to walk in that new pair of shoes as we look to the budget tomorrow. Thank you so much, Janice.
You're most welcome.